So we'll be splitting into two groups of five. Each member of the group is going to pick one of five different drawings. As a group, you'll discuss each of those drawings and kind of come up with a plan on how to create the models for each, meaning, so like take this part for example, I would pick three dimensions that would kind of control this part and on how it would need to be revised or iterated on, meaning which features of this part are going to have the most impact on the overall function of it. So in this case, I would probably gather that the inner diameter of here would be a major dimension. The overall height of it would be a major dimension, and let's say the diameter of the fastener hole would be one of the dimensions. So when I'm designing the model of this part, I would have a dimension that for the inner diameter, and then instead of also doing a diameter dimension for the outside diameter, I would simply add a thickness to this outside diameter from the inside diameter. So whenever the interior diameter gets bigger or smaller, the thickness is maintained. The overall height, that one would be pretty simple. Overall height and maybe the thickness of the flange here, and that's all it would be. The diameter of the fastener hole, if that got bigger or smaller, maybe that would actually control the thickness of the flange from this cylinder here. So it got bigger, thicker, smaller, thinner. That'd be a pretty simple one to actually put together. Another thing to probably consider on something like this with patterns is to actually pattern those holes so that if they need more or less holes, you could simply go into that pattern, change that number, and you would be done. I'm going to swap over to SolidWorks here and show you a model I've been working on. It's from the textbook from last year or last semester. It's fairly simple. I picked three dimensions. In this case, I have what I'm calling the height, and then the left hand and right hand of the part. The left hand and right hand, that just changes the position of the sphere here and the sphere there. So those are pretty straightforward. The height, on the other hand, I had to put a little thought into that. So when I changed the overall height here, I wanted to make sure that this cylinder here coming out of this sphere never became basically negative, I suppose. So if this ever went 8 or so up, this also stayed 6 from the center of that feature. That's why I dimensioned it this way. You might notice that I have these dimensions labeled, and they're also underneath the dimensions. To get that, if you come up here to the little eyeball and do the drop down, there's an option to show the dimension names. That will show the D2s, 3s, 1s, whatnot, and to actually give it a name that helps you kind of define it whenever someone looks at the model or you're looking at it again sometime in the future, you can know what it's supposed to be doing. Selecting the dimension, coming over to your properties panel here, you can come down to primary value, and above its actual value is the name. And there you just type in whatever you want to call it. This structure here will come into play later when we kind of start playing with using equations in our sketches. But for now, we're going to kind of avoid using those for the moment. You also might notice that my properties panel here is not right there, not covering up the feature tree. You can simply drag on these and move them around to where you want them. So if that's how it defaults. So just clicking about right here and holding down your left mouse button, you can drag it around and place it where you want. So I could place it down here, over in this corner, or on where I had it just currently. So that's your preference. If you want to leave it there, that's fine. I kind of like having it out of there so I can always have access to my model tree versus having to always click on this and then select whatever feature I'm looking for. Once again, that's a preference, but just so you know, you can do that. So another couple things on my sketch I did. in terms of the overall height of this part, I have these holes that have a specified depth on them, and I don't want to have to go in and change those depths per whatever height setting I end up needing. So I put these points on my sketch and then set a distance from my height to whatever they needed to stop. And then when I went to create my hole and the feature there's an option for your in condition being blind, meaning type in the number, or I have an option to do up to vertex, meaning I was able to click on that point in the sketch and have that hole in there. So whenever I change my height, say to 15, I don't have to worry about going and changing that hole depth as well. Now that's automatically follows the height and I'm good to go. Before you jump over, you can do this after you do it, but a couple things I want you to do in your model before finishing your drawing is to apply the material, the weight, and a description to each part. And instead of manually typing those into your title block, you can come up to the File Properties button here, click there, and then on this tab, come down to your property names, and it says type a new property. Let's see if I can get that to pop up again. Well, anyways, you don't have to type it. There's a drop down here. Click on that. And then so for description, I'm going to click description. In this case, I'm just going to give it the name of the problem number instead of an actual part type. So this is P1010, and I'm going to put a colon, and I want to have my height dimension in there and my left hand, right hand dimensions in. Once again, instead of manually typing those in, because of my height right now, I think it's 15, that ever changes, I can come over here, click on the sketch one where that dimension is located, and then simply click on that dimension, and then that'll plop that into my description. Then be careful with the kind of spacings when you use that. If you don't have a space in between one of these properties and whatever you're typing, that property will override whatever you typed in. I think let's try that out real quick. So I'm going to put X left hand and click on this dimension here. That seemed to actually work. I've had it do some weird things, so just be cautious and kind of keep an eye on this evaluated value as you're doing this. Space X, and then I'm going to cut right hand and then click on this dimension. As you can see, I modified the dimensions here on these because however that's displayed in that dimension, it's going to display here on your description. So I'm going to show you how I did that so I don't have any decimal places after these. If you have a inches drawing, I'll show you that you can also change that over to fraction. So on these here, if I select the dimension, not on the number, if you click on the number, that will actually go in to edit that value. So click on like the dimension line or extension line. On the properties panel here, I have the tolerance and precision. So I just changed the precision to none. This isn't necessarily a great way to probably handle this in this case, but this will be fine for now. In case I ever needed 23.5 or something. Now, if I go and change that to 23.5, it's not going to show up in my description. So I would probably say if you're doing it in inches, which I believe all the assignments I have are in inches, come over to this other tab, click on override units, and so if I change this to inches real quick, it gives me a little more options, and instead of decimal, I can set it to fractions, and that looks a little tidier in your description. So there's that. And then the other two properties I want you to have in here are going to be as I said, the material type and then the weight or mass. I'm going to click the drop down, click on material, and I'm not going to type this in. I'm going to click here again and then click on material again, and then weight, and then click on, oops, I just expanded that, on mass. Now these will show up in my title block because I'll show you in just a second here. Save this. I already had my drawing already kind of set up. And as you can see in my title block here, I have that description I typed in or created, my weight, and my material here. So if I ever make changes, as you can see, I'm going to change this back to 11 because that's the default size of that. Control tab, select that one, click on that guy, change it to 11, and Control B to rebuild or regenerate. Control tab, over to my drawing. As you can see, my drawing updated without any errors. If you see drawings that are in your drawing, if you see any dimensions that turn yellow, that means they lost their association to whatever you had initially dimensioned them to. As far as I've tried, regretfully, it seems like the best path to fix it is just to kind of start over. I played around with it a little bit, but so far it's just been kind of more of a pain in the butt than just doing it from scratch again. Everything got updated. I'm going to hit save. And so the next step I want you to do is, after creating an account on a website called GrabCAD, which I'll have a link to, there's GrabCAD Workbench. On the site, we're going to be able to create different projects, upload those files to those projects, and then share those projects with different members of the class. And that way, that kind of opens us up to doing a lot more collaboration with each other and keeping. One of the biggest nice things about it, and I'll show you real quick, is it keeps track of the versions of your files. So right now I currently have this is version 2 of the part itself and version 3 of the drawing. Now if I upload, and I think, let's see here, folder options, oops, that. I want to upload, or I can simply drag and drop them in there here. I'm going to drag and drop these guys in here. And it's going to ask me, do I want to make a new version? It says I want to update the version. I want to apply it to both of them. And then I'd like you to actually add a little bit of text to each upload to kind of describe what changes you made. If it's the first upload, just say this is the first upload of this part. But since this is my second one, I'm going to just say I added description material and weight properties, and I'm just going to say weight to model and hit done. Now you can see the versions have updated on those parts. If I click on each of them, actually what I wanted, if you click on the version tab there, it'll show you the different versions you had. So say you get up to version 10, you realize you've completely messed up everything, and the last good model you had or drawing was version 5. Now you actually have that option to actually go back to version 5 and re-download it and work from there. So I haven't used this with the groups yet, so we're going to have to kind of experiment with this and see how this goes, but we'll get our profile set up and we'll try to play around with these projects and see how well it works out for us. I'm fairly hopeful this works out great, but we'll see. This is similar to something I've used in the field, so it's going to be hopefully a good experience for you. I'm not going to say you're going to use this GrabCAD on the job site, but you're probably going to use something similar. I think that's all I need to kind of share with you now. So you'll be, like I said, splitting into 2 groups of 5. You'll discuss each part as a group on at least 3 dimensions per part that are going to be the ones that kind of control the overall function of it, I suppose. So when you get that discussion done, you'll go to your individual computers and start working on it. Keep talking with each other, kind of get some advice on how to do this or that from each other, and then upload them to this GrabCAD, and then you'll be downloading that part, the initial part and drawing from GrabCAD and making a copy of it, which I'm going to show you how to, kind of the best way of handling that right now. So I have this part here. Actually, I was playing with this, so I need to real quick delete this. I'm going to make a copy of the drawing and the model at the same time. And this way works. This is the best way I found out how to do it. So go up to File and click on Pack and Go. So when this is open here, you're going to do in the Save to Name column. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to change that A to a B, and that one to a B. I don't know if there's a way to actually do them both at the same time. If there is, I'll keep an eye out for it, but so far it seems like you kind of have to do one at a time. And then hit Save. Now when I click on Open, I have my B10 or my B versions of this part. So I could quick make my B, let's say that it needs to be let's say 30 or what, okay, 25, 20 with a height of 10. Generate, save it, open up my drawing. Everything seemed to update correctly. Okay, so keep an eye out on that. Your dimensions might kind of move around a little bit, so just readjust them, snap them in place. Description updated perfectly. And we're good to go. I'll save this. Jump over to my GrabCAD. Click on the project folder. Click on Upload Files. And like I said, you either can drag them in there or do what I just did here. Select those two and open. And then I'll just say first upload. And done. So you'll be each making the initial model and drawing, and then your other group members will take that model and drawing and make some randomized iterations of those, and then uploading it to the project. Definitely keep talking with each other. If you notice any problems with one of the drawings or the model that one of your group members made, go talk to them, discuss how they could fix it or do it better. Be constructive, don't be a jerk, and shouldn't take too terribly long to get finished.